Please remember, none of this is financial advice. The surest sign that intelligent life exists elsewhere in the universe is that it has never tried to contact us.
Which puts a check on unelected bureaucrats and ensures that the United States digital currency policy upholds our values of privacy, individual sovereignty, and free market competitiveness. Recent actions from the Biden administration have made it clear that they are not only itching to create a digital dollar, but they're willing to trade Americans' right to financial privacy for a surveillance-style CBDC. This bill ensures the future of crypto is in the hands of the American people, not the administrative state. By prohibiting the Federal Reserve from creating a tool with unfettered insight into Americans' financial data. If not open, permissionless, and private, like cash, a CBDC is nothing more than a CCP-style surveillance tool that can be weaponized to oppress the American way of life.
Did you notice how Tom Emmer said, if not
open, permissionless, and private?
This is a very bullish thing for crypto. He wants central bank digital currencies not in the hands of the Fed, but in the hands of the private sector that issues it on protocols, on crypto protocols. So all the value that the Fed has, which is an infinite amount of money that they print, can come on chain.
Rich, you've got this trust model, right? So talk a little bit about that. It's not a full bank, but you've got Fortress Trust. Explain to us what that model is about and how you think that can be constructive to the crypto community.
Sure. I think it's the perfect model for the crypto community because two reasons. We can pretty much do everything that a bank does, but more importantly, none of the assets are held on our balance sheet. So, and also there's no single point of failure. So if we have an issue with one of our banks that we work with, and we have close to a dozen, and we're adding every day, and these banks are fully aware of what we're doing in this space. We have an open line of dialogue with compliance on both sides of the fence. And if there's an issue down the road and we have to exit, we just, the levers switch and our clients don't even notice a difference.
Right. So
we can handle both, omnibus and segregated accounts. So okay. It's a good.
So you don't
model.
face the fractional reserve problem, right? That there's a run on the bank at any time.
Exactly.
This is Fortress Trust. This is the company that Ripple just bought. As you just heard him, there is a dozen banks using Fortress Trust, and it's climbing. Ripple is picking up the critical infrastructure.
Close to a dozen, and we're adding every day.
Financial infrastructure is being embedded on the internet with the help of key players like Ripple. What's completely insane is that we're fearing central bank digital currencies, we're fearing the surveillance state, and right now the world that we live in is controlled by AI, it's controlled by the big tech companies. And the big tech companies have these huge databases that are collecting all of the information in the world. Every single thing that happens on the internet, they're logging it. When Incogni asked if they could sponsor this show, this is why I agreed, because what Incogni does is that they're going to leverage the law in your favor. In the US, the UK, the EU, Switzerland, and Canada, there's all laws in place that require these data brokerages to delete your data if you ask them. The opt-out rules. Incogni leverages these laws and they go through the proper procedures to have your information removed from each one of these databases. Now, you can do this yourself, but Incogni has this all set up and automated. There's hundreds, if not thousands, of data brokerages out there. So if you use my link, incogni.com/Darren, you'll get an exclusive offer, 60% off, as well as a 30-day money-back guarantee. Incogni.com/Darren.
So earlier this week, a project that we've been partnering on with the Bank for International Settlements Innovation Hub, London Centre, which is housed in the bank, reported its results. And that's something that we've been exploring with the BIS Innovation Hub, which is about how you could synchronize a transaction between the real-time gross settlement system to settle a payment and another ledger. In this case, we used the land registry, so how you could synchronously settle a housing transaction. And that's important that's an experiment, but it's important to the future of the payments and the service that we offer, because we've already set out that synchronization is something that we are interested in, and we would like at some point to be able to implement that kind of functionality. And again, it's about making something better. I'm sure many of us in this room have bought a house in the UK. It's a process with frictions, and we've demonstrated. I mean, this is just a prototype and experiment, but we've demonstrated how you can make something better that's tangible that people do.
I'm still working on the house, but
I think she said Ripple, but one or two of my Patreons disagree with me. And I'll leave it up to you. Did she say Ripple or did she say something else?
Housed in the bank reported its results.
It still sounds like Ripple to me, but if you think otherwise, write in the comments below. Even if she's not saying Ripple, Ripple has been tied to this project from the get-go. From 2017, this project has evolved into Project Meridian. But even with that said, this is a document that comes out of the Bank of England. You could see that there is a progression that happened. Ripple partnered with the Bank of England in 2017. With Cambridge Analytica, they did some synchronized payment system. And you can see there's cross-border synchronization, a joint project with Ripple demonstrating synchronized FX transactions between two different RTGS systems. It can be achieved leading to the incorporation of synchronization functionality into the roadmap for renewal. And then 72 is the footmark. So this whole thing is synchronized real-time gross settlement systems. So synchronized real-time payment systems between two different countries. And by the way, I asked Bob Way about this, and he said it's game over when two different countries atomically swap assets. Here's 72 as a footmark. Bank of England 2017 Ripple proof of concept. Was it
how do you think this project is going to progress? I mean, what sort of next steps you think the Bank of England is going to explore? Is it just going to be some specific use case like land registries, or you plan to expand on other use cases?
I mean, it's certainly something that we're going to continue looking at. It was absolutely great to work on that project, with the BIS and be able to build something tangibly that proved that this is something that can be done. The projects we do with the Bank for International Settlements are for the kind of global central banking community. So there are lessons there that others can and hopefully will learn from for their own payment systems. But within the UK and within RTGS, we have set out the aspiration that we would like to be able to introduce the ability to have synchronization functionality. So it's something that we'll definitely continue looking at within that team.
That's super interesting.
Andrew Whitworth, that was nodding the entire time she was going on and on about Project Meridian. Well, it turns out he worked for the Bank of England. He was part of the payment fintech area of the Bank of England. Central banks in general are extremely skeptical of crypto assets. He moved his entire career to Ripple. The earlier documentation states that this is going to be an evolution. They're going to get more people involved, more firms involved, and that's exactly what's happened. The BIS has gotten involved. Project Meridian has gone way beyond just the 2017 proof of concept with Interledger. Now, keep in mind that this is not a central bank digital currency. This is synchronized ledgers, and this is much different than a CBDC, but Ripple is also on the Digital Pound Foundation. The Digital Pound Foundation is a lobby group trying to get the Bank of England to move to a central bank digital currency.
Project Meridian from the BIS Innovation Hub London Centre and the Bank of England is looking at how financial technology can improve transactions for a wide range of assets. The project experiments using the complex process of buying a house. It builds a prototype new entity, a synchronization operator, at the center of the transaction. They electronically coordinate the simultaneous transfer of money and house ownership. The synchronization operator asks for funds to be reserved in the buyer's bank account so they can only be used to purchase the property. At an agreed time, the operator starts the payment process. It asks the central bank to move funds from the buyer's bank to the seller's bank.
Keep in mind that the Hong Kong Monetary Authority just announced that Ripple, as well as LoanSnap, is going to work on their central bank digital currency project that also involves real estate.
So we've talked about innovation in payment acceptance with MERIDIan. We talked about central bank programs around innovation and how to improve the existing infrastructure. Perhaps, Andrew, we can talk about your favorite topic, cross-border payments, and how Ripple is sort of changing the space there, and what sort of big improvements from sort of status quo Ripple can provide using sometimes DLT technology, and blockchain.
I don't even need to do the pitch, which you've just done. Thank you. But it talks exactly to these 2 points. I mean, personally, for what it's worth, I love instant payments, open banking. I think it's a fantastic innovation. I like what it will do for incumbent markets, be it banking, be it the payment markets, and the benefit it will provide to end users, which I think we should never forget when we talk about any policy development. Why I particularly like it, because this is the kind of wonky background that I have, is that it's a great example of regulation supporting creating innovation. This is innovation that's been caused by PSD2 in large part, and not just in creating the actual space for these firms to develop.
So you have an asset ledger that has a truth on it, and then it sends instructions to an operator that then sends instructions to the central bank payment system where central bank money gets sent. Now, this is going to be applied not just for real estate, but bonds and Forex and different types of applications. So this prototype is not just for real estate, although real estate is its first application. Now, this was a WorldPay video that was completely unlisted, so I don't know how long it takes before they asked me to take this down, but it was unlisted from WorldPay. So make sure to share this with your friends before they ask me to take it down. But Ripple is no stranger to land registries. Remember, they worked with Colombia, the Central Bank of Colombia, to do their land registry. So it looks like the Bank of England is doing the same thing that the Bank of Colombia is doing with the land registry. And a while back, a real long time ago, like 2017, 2018, a Deloitte document came out showing Ripple Connect between real estate. So, and in the diagram, they're showing somebody from the UK purchasing land from somebody in the US or vice versa with Ripple Connect and Interledger between all of this. Not to mention asynchronous payments, synchronized payments, Project Stella, which was the ECB as well as the Bank of Japan, using Interledger. So they tested Interledger Protocol between both.
So I think one great use case in the future for blockchain technology is tying these things together, precisely because of experiments like the BIS Innovation Hub are done with the Bank of England and other ones around the world. So experiments like the BIS Innovation Hub are done with the Bank of England and other ones around the world. So getting different instant payment systems to talk to each other, getting different CBDCs to talk to each other via a blockchain. So blockchain has two fundamental benefits, right? One is trust or transparency, and the other is permanence. And these are things that you're going to need if you're going to get people coordinating at the sort of mass level globally. Now, these coordinations are more efficient, make more sense done via central banks or via domestic systems, rather than each individual person doing it to each individual person. But there's a real benefit to blockchain technology here, tying them all together. Now, Ripple does that already with via XRP for our private clients. But there are ways this can be done between central banks, between other systems, between other players.
So Ripple does this through XRP, but there's other ways that this can be done for central banks and other clients.
And how do you guys sort of position yourselves with tokenized bank deposits? Do you guys also plan to integrate that as part of sort of the Ripple infrastructure?
I mean, our infrastructure is agnostic on the token being used. We are a tech service provider that provides technology to clients to do what they want to do. With the products that we can offer them. What I would say at a sort of slightly more macro level is we see the future. I mean, going back to our earlier conversation around CBDCs and stablecoins, we see all of these things as part of the future mix of money. I find it very unlikely any single solution is going to dominate. So what becomes important then? So, I mean, essentially, schematically, it would be a physical, digital, private, or public coin. And these things, different combinations of these are going to exist around the world. What's important is interoperability. So making sure that these talk to each other. Doesn't matter if it's public, private, or physical, digital. Now, different types of intermediaries will need to exist to make that happen. Sometimes it could be an API, sometimes it could be technological on-chain or on-side chain. Sometimes it'll need to be a bank, so you can put your cash in there and turn that into some form of deposit. But the key thing is that these different types of money all can interact, because otherwise we're going to end up with walled gardens around the world, not just between different countries, though also that, but also within countries. I think that fragmentation would be a very bad outcome from the innovation that we're seeing.
Interoperability is going to be crucial. Right now, one of the solutions is burn to mint, meaning that you burn your token and mint it on the other chain. So imagine you have two different ledgers, and on one wallet you put 1 million tokens, and on the other chain you issue 1 million tokens. So right now, that's how DeFi works, and they just call them wrap tokens. But what burn to mint does is, instead of you putting 1 million tokens in a wallet, you burn the 1 million tokens and then issue the 1 million tokens. Therefore, there's no wallet that anyone can try to hack. Now, there needs to be another third party, an oracle or a witness server that sits between the two ledgers and makes sure that they were both honest, that they both, every time that a token went into this wallet and got burnt, it got issued on the other side. So that's what Evernode's is trying to do, and that's why I'm really pleased with what they're doing, and I'm looking forward to seeing more develop with what Evernode's does. So for this to all work, everything has to be decentralized. You can't have counterparties between different networks. It needs to be able to move assets without the worry of a counterparty. A counterparty is just friction and cost.
So whether it's about broker dealers, whether it's about exchanges, whether it's about custody, we have taken up the path where we find it appropriate to put out the public comments and proposals. But there are laws, there are rules, not just here at the SEC, but across a number of areas. I think this is a field that a lot of it just wants to run past that and suggest otherwise.
They do seem to be finding some sympathetic judges. So you have to be careful on that one. We've done
There's an appellate court, a unanimous three-judge panel saying that the SEC was being arbitrary and capricious. These are pretty harsh words for a government agency.
So in terms of they do seem to be finding some sympathetic judges. So you have to be careful on that one. We've done
When she comments about the judges giving the SEC a hard time, Gary Gensler doesn't have a response. You could see that in the pit of his stomach, there's pain. You could see that this is a painful moment. Gary Gensler is carrying out the bidding of Senator Elizabeth Warren. He doesn't want to do this. This is painful to him. He's trying to play politics. You see, he wants to be treasurer of the United States, and he's trying to play ball.
Yeah, I wanted to ask Scott, recently had an interview with Caitlin Long where you're talking about the insider in Washington. I was wondering if off the air she told you who that person was that was kind of rejecting the applications for the Fed window and other places, if there's anywhere we can kind of look to know who that person is.
Not specifically, because I think actually she can't. There's litigation, and I think some of it are now emails that are going to be part of the litigation. But she made it very, very clear that the directives come straight from the White House, but from an Elizabeth Warren staffer in the White House.
Well, there is a little bit of good news here because I'm going to butcher his last name potentially, but it's Bharat Ramamurthy, who is a NEC staffer on the Economic Council within the White House, is a former Warren staffer, and he has been one of the most damaging behind-the-scenes people in D.C. He actually resigned last week. It was in the news. I tweeted about this, so fingers crossed that there's another a little bit of an internal changing of the guard and maybe a softening going into a midterm cycle where, a major election where maybe this won't swing presidential politics, but crypto absolutely will have an impact on a couple of key Senate races potentially.
So this is Bharat Ramarte, and he is an attorney and political advisor. He had a big say in the C-19 policies and the CARES Act. Well, it turns out that this guy has been with Warren since the very beginning, from 2013 to 2019. And he was also going to serve during her presidential campaign. So he's been around the NEC, the National Economic Council, which is pretty much like a sister organization to the Fed. They have a lot of say with international domestic economic policy. And he was right under Lael Brainerd. Lael Brainerd was once at the Fed, and they moved her to the NEC. So
you mentioned the speed of cross-border payments and the opaqueness of that process, and I guess it's also error-prone to some extent with SWIFT. Santander seems to be trying to approach it with a partnership with Ripple. Just curious what your thoughts are on that.
So I do think that of the use cases out there, cross-border is one of the most compelling. We know that intermediation chains cross-border are long and quite opaque, and they're slow, and they can be quite costly. So my sense is that technology with the appropriate safeguards could make a material impact and likely will. And it may well be through a partnership model. I don't want to pronounce on any particular approach, but there are a variety of partnerships out there that are trying to innovate and to reduce frictions and increase transparency for those cross-border transactions. In my sense, I'm fairly optimistic that there are some good solutions out there that don't necessitate a global stablecoin.
I thought my life would be more interesting with a musical score and a laugh track. Thanks, everyone. I hope you enjoyed the show. Please take a moment to like and subscribe. If you enjoy content like this, please consider joining my Patreon or my ghost site, dmjr.ghost.io. Thanks, guys.